The time is at hand.
From the land between the crackheads in Williamson, West Virginia, you're in Dark Places. I am Junebug Fugit. Welcome. We got a fun little show in store for you planned this week. You always hear about space junk and weird hailstorms and stuff like that falling from the sky. So we decided to do this episode. It fell from the sky. Mysterious ice chunk crashes through roof of Florida home. Did it come from a plane? By Ariel Edie. Thanks, Ariel. In February, a mysterious ice chunk plummeted through the roof of a home in central Florida, leaving both the homeowners and experts scratching their heads. Fortunately, no one was hurt, but the origins of the ice are a mystery. To get to the bottom of it, the Federal Aviation Administration stepped in to investigate. Here's what they discovered. Officials initially thought the ice chunk might have resulted from a water leak on a plane, which could freeze and fall off as the aircraft descended and the temperature warmed. However, on Wednesday, I don't know which Wednesday, the FAA stated that the agency contacted all airlines operating flights in the Flagler County area at the time of the incident. After their investigation, they found no evidence to suggest that the ice chunk came from a plane.
Inspections of those aircraft did not find any evidence of water leaks that could have caused the ice to form on the outside of the aircraft,
a FAA spokesperson said in a statement obtained by Fox 35 News. The origin remains a mystery. Firefighters came to the home after a neighbor reported hearing a loud noise and finding ice on the ground. No one was injured. In Mexico, fish fall from the sky so often, there's a name for it. Lluvia de peces. Also, rain of fish. In fact, coastal cities around the world, from California to England to India, have all seen their own versions of the fishy phenomenon. So what's going on? Poseidon's wrath aside, one possible explanation, there are several theories, is that these fish falls stem from weather events called waterspouts. Basically, a tornado that touches down on water. Sometimes, when the whirling winds suck up water from lakes or oceans, they lift up schools of unsuspecting fish and other water life with them. The winds carry the critters inland, then ultimately drop them on land with whatever water remains. Waterspouts may also be to blame for a straight-up biblical phenomenon of frog rain. Tiny toads have been recorded dropping from the sky, at least since 1873, when an article in Scientific American reported a shower of frogs, which darkened the air and covered the ground for a long distance, following a rainstorm in Kansas City, Missouri. The precise cause of the 1873 frog rain is unknown, but scientists generally apply this logic to frog falls. If a strong wind could overturn a car or rip a tree up from the ground, it could certainly carry a frog far from its swampy home. And that one I have witnessed myself. I talked about it before on the show. That time that I was with my dad and my uncle, we saw the ghost woman wearing a red raincoat when it was pouring rain. Well, that same night, it was raining frogs. That was the topic of conversation before we saw the ghost woman. It was raining super hard, and you could see little tiny frogs just hopping around all over the road. My dad was pointing it out to us. Look, it's raining frogs. And then we saw the ghost, so we quickly stopped talking about the frog rain. But yeah, I've seen that before.
And how about the Tunguska Mystery? At a little after 7 in the morning on June 30th, 1908, residents near the, these words they want you to pronounce, near the Podcaminea Tunguska River in rural Romania, reported seeing a smoking fireball in the sky, an incredibly bright flash of light, a loud boom, and felt themselves being blown into the air. Some reported going unconscious and that their homes were destroyed. Trees in the area were flattened and burned. According to the Scientific American, other parts of the world experienced huge silver clouds, spectacularly colored sunsets, and bright skies, even in the dead of night. Expeditions did not make it to the region until 1927 due to a variety of factors, including the area being difficult to get to. World War I and the Russian Revolution. When they finally did, they did not find the source of the explosion. There was no impact site, nothing, just the destruction it left behind. Today, most scientists believe it was an asteroid or comet gunning for Earth that was vaporized in a mid-air explosion, explaining the lack of evidence found in the area. Later expeditions found microscopic particles that were definitely from somewhere in space, though scientists couldn't determine what exactly they'd come from. Others, however, believe perhaps there's a more paranormal explanation for the blast, like aliens.
And that there was Jimmy Haunted. Thank you, sir. Jimmy will be back with another story in just a little bit. Okay, so Florida, we gotta have a talk. What's going on with y'all? While residents of Tallahassee, Florida braced for their first measurable snowfall in 28 years, back in January of 2018, other Floridians braced for a hailstorm of frozen iguanas. The cold-blooded lizards are an invasive species in Florida, where they like to make their homes in suburban tree branches. When the temperature goes down, iguanas literally shut down and can no longer hold on to trees, said Ron McGill, wildlife expert and communications director for Zoo Miami. The paralyzed iguanas tumble out of the trees and remain stock still, but not dead, until temperatures warm, allowing them to revive and scurry off once again. Florida also saw an iguana rain in 2008. Much like the mystery of raining animals, the phenomenon of raining stones has a long historical record. One of the earliest accounts dates back to 1557, when Conrad Lycostinus' Chronicles of Prodigies recounted a rain of stones resulting in the demise of both people and livestock. In the medieval period, incidents of stones falling from the sky were ascribed to supernatural creatures or even demonic forces. In 1690, folklorist Robert Kirk suggested in his book, The Secret Commonwealth, that falling stones were the work of subterranean dwellers known as invisible wights, akin to goblins or brownies, which were said to throw stones about, but never with the intent to cause harm. In 1698, a shower of stones that fell from the sky was reported in New Hampshire, as documented in a pamphlet titled Lithobolia, or the Stone-Throwing Devil. A highly publicized event of falling stones transpired in Harrisonville, Ohio, in October 1901. A small local newspaper, the Buffalo Express, reported that on October 13th, a small boulder came crashing through the window of Zach Dye's house. No person was spotted nearby. Yet this was just the start. The entire town was purportedly besieged by stones and boulders falling from the clear sky. Baffled about the origin of these stones, the townspeople gathered all the men and boys of Harrisonville to ensure the phenomenon was not being perpetrated by a band of mischief makers, the assumption being that women were incapable of such actions. However, the stones continued to fall. Several days later, the stone rain ceased as abruptly as it began. Since that event, numerous other instances of stones falling from the sky have been documented, including in Sumatra in 1903, Belgium in 1913, France in 1921, Australia between 1946 and 1962, New Zealand 1963, New York 1973, and Arizona 1983. A metallic object that fell from the sky in Makuni Village by Andrew Wayola Thanks, Andrew. The Kenya Space Agency, KSA, Wednesday, back in January 2025, explained an incident involving a metallic object that fell from the skies and landed in Makuku Village, Makuku Sublocation, Nalukuku Location, Wai Division, Mabuni East Sub-County, Makini County. Getting pretty specific with it. The incident happened on December 30th, 2024. The agency said that the object, a metallic ring measuring approximately 2.5 meters in diameter and weighing about 500 kilos, is a fragment of a space object. There's a lot of that stuff going on nowadays. All that space junk falling to the ground. It's a great idea to send all that junk up in space, wasn't it? Preliminary assessments indicate that the fallen object is a separation ring from a launch vehicle rocket. Such objects are usually designed to burn up as they re-enter the Earth's atmosphere or to fall over unoccupied areas, such as the oceans, KSA said in a statement. It added, "This is an isolated case, which the agency will investigate and address using established framework under the International Space Law." KSA officials rushed to the scene and, working alongside a multi-agency team and local authorities, secured the area and retrieved the debris, which is now under the agency's custody for further investigation. Yeah, they want to sell that thing on eBay for $10,000. The agency wishes to thank the local residents of Makuku Village for their prompt action in reporting the incident to the authorities and for their cooperation in ensuing public safety. We express our gratitude to the local leadership, the multi-agency team, the McKinney County government, and media houses for disseminating this critical information in a timely manner. The statement added that the agency experts will analyze the object, use existing framework to identify the owner, and keep the public informed of the next steps and outcomes. Residents were treated to a rare spectacle when they spotted the object. Witnesses who heard the object fall said they heard a loud bang that stretched as far as 50 kilometers away. The circular object weighed approximately 1 ton and had a radius of 1.2 meters. Under normal circumstances, such objects are supposed to burn up completely or land safely in the ocean, Major Lewis Wurr of the Kenya Defense Forces, and who is attached to the KSA, said.
Alright, this one's kind of weird. I'm going to fit it in here. The Great Kentucky Meat Shower, or the Kentucky Shower of Flesh. On the 3rd of March in 1876, large chunks of fresh meat, most of which were about 5 by 5 centimeters, rained down from the sky in Olympia Springs, Kentucky, like large snowflakes. It was not actually raining, though. In fact, the sky was crystal clear, minus the chunks of flesh falling from it. 2 local men tasted the strange meat and believed it was either venison or mutton. They tasted it. Later, 2 histologists analyzed the meat and determined it, or at least the pieces they had access to, was made up of lung tissue, muscular tissue, and cartilage. What exactly happened in Kentucky that day remains a mystery, though there have been several hypotheses. One of which that the meat was actually nostoc, which is a gelatinous bacteria known as witch's butter, or star slubber, that swells and floats when it rains. As previously stated, it was a perfectly clear day when the meat rained down, so most aren't too convinced about the supposed explanation. Other theories range from being projectile vulture vomit or alien flesh from an UFO explosion in space.
NASA reveals what the strange object was that fell from the sky and tore through a Florida home's roof. Of course it's Florida. By Sherwin Shabu. Thanks, Sherwin. 1 month after an object crashed through the roof and 2 floors of a home in Naples, Florida, NASA published results of what the object really was and why it unexpectedly fell from the sky. NASA stated that the object was space debris. Again, a 1.6-pound piece of a bigger 5,800-pound pallet containing old batteries that the agency released from the International Space Station 3 years ago. The pallet was supposed to burn up as it entered the Earth's atmosphere in March of last year, but a small piece survived and impacted the Florida home. The homeowner, Alejandro Arturo, allowed NASA to collect and analyze the sample after attempting to connect with the agency through a post on X last month. Arturo posted footage of the sounds of the crash as captured by his home security camera. NASA found that the debris was made of inconel, a metal known for its ability to withstand high temperatures. The International Space Station will investigate why the debris failed to burn as it should have and update its engineering models according to what it finds, NASA said. The agency affirmed its commitment to responsibility operating and decreasing the risk of people on Earth when it has to release objects from space. Space junk, or man-made debris in orbit around the Earth, is a problem. Not only can debris travel 10 times faster than a bullet, but there's also a lot of it. Around 44 tons of space debris hits Earth's atmosphere every day. And while 95% of it burns up, NASA documents that over the past 50 years, an average of one piece of debris fell back to Earth per day. The Aerospace Corporation estimates that the risk of injury due to falling space debris is less than 1 in a trillion, but cautions that the potential impact of even a small piece of debris can be noticeable. A blueberry-sized piece of debris, for example, can cause an impact comparable to a falling anvil. What were the Oakville blobs, and what caused them? In the summer of 1994, the year I graduated, the small town of Oakville in Washington state experienced an extraordinary phenomenon. Instead of water, it began raining blobs. Gelatinous, clear goo splattered across windscreens, covering buildings and earth, and that's when people began getting sick. This strange phenomenon became known as the Oakville blobs. Oakville in Washington state was accustomed to rain, lots of rain. However, the torrential kind that fell on August 7, 1994 was no ordinary rain. Residents in the small city reported that what fell from the sky was not water, but gloopy, translucent blobs, each no bigger than a single grain of rice. One police officer, David Lacey, recounted seeing the goop hit his windscreen while on patrol at 3 a.m. Speaking on the television program Unsolved Mysteries, he compared it to Jell-O and said, "We turned on our windshield wipers and it just started smearing to the point where we could almost not see." Another local deputy, Dottie Hearn, described it looking like hell, laying on top of the wood box and everywhere else. Over the next 3 weeks, there will be 5 more occasions of reports of raining blobs over the area of some 20 square miles. The very day the raining blobs, people started getting sick, both Officer Lacey and Dottie Hearn among them. There were reports of people developing flu-like symptoms from contact or proximity to the blobs, even of animals dying. Officer Lacey described being violently sick and having difficulty breathing. Dottie Hearn collapsed, also finding it hard to breathe, and was hospitalized for 3 days with an ear infection. So what was that mushy gloop, and did it have any connection with the reported sickness? Sunny Barclift, Dottie Hearn's daughter, suspected a correlation between the raining blobs and her mother's illness, so she sent a sample of the Oakville blobs to the Hazardous Material Unit at the Department of Ecology at Washington State. On Unsolved Mysteries, microbiologist Mike McDowell recalled finding 2 species of bacteria in the Oakville blobs. One of these was known to infect the human digestive system. According to an article in the New York Times on August 20th, 1994, scientist Mike Osweiler of the Washington State Department said they found a number of cells of various sizes and 2 types of bacteria in the blobs, but were unable to identify them. They did, however, note that the cells did not have nuclei. This was significant in that it refuted a previous claim that the blobs contained human white blood cells which do have nuclei. So what were the Oakville blobs? A small but vocal contingent believes they were jellyfish. jellyfish parts, to be precise, dispersed into rain clouds by bombing runs carried out by the Air Force. While the bombing was confirmed around 50 miles away in the Pacific, this idea is unsubstantiated. Fluid waste from an airplane toilet was also a possibility raised at the time. However, the U.S. Federal Aviation Administration pointed out that this would be blue, not translucent, like the Oakville, Washington blobs. There is, of course, the chance that the raining blobs never rained in the first place, that they emerged from a more earthly plane. While this would require overlooking the witness statements of those who saw the blobs fall, it has been mooted as a theory. Ever since the 14th century, there have been reports of a substance very similar to the blobs in Oakville being found elsewhere. It's called star jelly, astral jelly, or oxymixin, and is named after the legend that it falls from the sky during meteor showers. That's not to say that anyone agrees on the nature of star jelly. All the original uncollected blobs have long disappeared, and there are no known remaining samples of the Oakville blobs, including at the Washington Department of Health. In fact, they apparently have no records of ever receiving any. So, where does this leave investigations? It seems that unless they make another appearance explaining the blobs in Oakville and any connection they may have had to the sickness that spread in their aftermath, may be forever out of reach. That's about all of the big show for this week. We hope you enjoyed it. And if you enjoyed it, give us a little rating or something. Thumbs up on YouTube. A little comment just saying hi. Something to get that algorithm going. Thanks for listening. And thanks as always, Jimmy Haunted. We'll see you again right here next week. God bless.